Triggers, trauma, and relationships. Or really, I should say trauma triggers and relationships. Hi. As you can see, I have about 5 or 6 subscribers to this channel at the moment. I'm trying to get more traction, get more flow, and put much more content on here. So if I can ask you, before I even start, can you please support me? Like the video, click on subscribe so that you can get notifications of my future videos, if you like. And then also, after you watch the video, leave a comment. Tell me what you thought about this video. The more we share our pain and our trauma, it actually helps us in those very first steps to get beyond that I'm the only one experiencing this. So actually getting it from your internal environment outside plays a very important part in the whole processing of the trauma behavior itself. Now back to the video. Processing a trauma and then integrating that trauma into your life, your new version of yourself, is a hell of a job. All right, it is incredibly difficult to get through. Just the whole experience is really, really challenging. It's challenging because of a number of things, but mainly it's challenging because we get triggered the whole time, right? On top of this pain we're experiencing, and then all of the stages of the processing as well, the guilt, the anger, the shame, the negative self-talk, all of those things, on top of that, you get triggered, right? You get triggered. What the hell? That's what this video is about. First of all, I would like to look at what is a trigger. Now, those of you watching this who have experienced, right, being triggered, oh my God. I mean, it still happens to me, to some of my very deep-seated traumas as well. So let's put a working definition on it. A trigger, how I personally understand it, is when an unprocessed feeling that's still deep inside your body, a feeling that has not yet been translated for your mind to understand, what is this pain? You know, how do I deal with this pain? Our bodies just tell us this is this massive, intense thing that's happening. It sends a message through the vagus nerve to your brain going, okay, Marcel, what are you supposed to do with this information now? Because that feeling has, not yet been translated, we just immediately experience the pain. So trigger is something that initiates that pain. It's something that pokes on the pain and says, hey, feel me. And this is why it's so difficult to deal with, right? It's really difficult to deal with. Now, when it comes to triggers, there's multiple different kinds. There's different things depending on the trauma that one actually experienced. Different environmental factors are going to trigger your traumas. Now, when it comes to big T traumas, right, really high intensity traumas, accidents, massive, very confrontational experience, soldiers, the likes of that, journalists, medical personnel, emergency medical personnel especially, they can be triggered by anything from blood to high intensity environmental factors, anything basically like that. On the other side, and I'm going to use this because that's what the video is about, right? Relationships and trigger traumas. And this is how it was for me. Any situation that we experience that reminds us of a trigger environment, a trigger dynamic, right? So what this can be, it can be anything that we perceive as pressure in our environments that triggers this old trauma pattern, the old trauma behavior. Now, in my particular case, I was under enormous pressure growing up, right? For various different reasons, which I will go into much later. But what it did with me is, up until a few years ago, and once again, transparency full on the table, even now still, right? When I experience a lot of environmental pressure, I go into this full-on survival mode. No, I have to take control. I have to take the lead. I have to be responsible for fixing this now. I get such bad tunnel vision that I forget about everybody around me. I forget, fuck Marcel, there's many people around you that can actually help you to do this, and whatever the pressure is, you can actually help share this. So what it does is it just brings me back immediately. Brings me back to feeling I have to, right? I have to without a choice at all. Incredibly difficult to deal with, right? It really, really is. Basically, a trigger is so damaging because anywhere where there's interaction involved, either person to person, or think of traffic after you've been in a car accident, environmental, right? Anywhere where there's any form of interaction present, there's a possibility that an unprocessed, unintegrated trauma can be triggered. Mostly with people, okay? Now, relationships. Are you watching this now? Are you struggling in your relationship? Right? Are you having fights with your partner, or your brother, or your sister, or your mother, or your father, or close friends? Anybody that is close to you, right? Do you find yourself being triggered by them quite a lot? Now, if the answer to that question is yes, then I made this video for you. Why does this happen? As I explained in previous videos, when we experience trauma during the early stages of our life, parts of our brain that translates this traumatic high intensity experience, this part is not yet developed. So what we do, rather than say that it's our environment's fault, right? Our environment is doing something wrong, because we don't have the capabilities to come to these conclusions yet. We internalize it, we translate it as I did something wrong, and we do that because the people in our environment close to us, majority of the case, they are responsible for our survival, for our safety and our security. So rather than say, listen, these people, they're broken, they're damaged, they haven't dealt with their stuff yet. See, I'm trying to swear less. Their stuff yet. And that's why this is happening. It actually has nothing to do with me. I just triggered them. We turn it back to ourselves. Okay, and we say, I must have done something wrong. Why else would this be happening? How is this linked to trauma triggers in relationship as adults? It's linked because the people around us that are close to us, especially the people that care about us and the people that we care about, we associate these people with our sense of safety, our sense of security, our sense of belonging, sense of self-definition. These people matter to us. Now think again. When do we get triggered the most? By the people closest to us. So it's not that they're doing something wrong. God, no. Okay, and this is incredibly important. After you got triggered and after you calmed down, learn to go back to them and tell them, I'm sorry, I got triggered. I'm realizing this, I'm doing something about it, but it's important for me to tell you that you did not anything wrong. This is me going through my stuff. So in essence, it's because we care about what they think about us that when something triggers this deep-seated, unprocessed trauma, we lash out. Why do we lash out? Because our body still translates this information as my survival is being attacked. Somebody that cares for me, somebody that I associate with my sense of safety and security, they're attacking me, so I need to protect myself. Now, once again, I cannot make this clear enough. This is a subconscious process. Okay, so this is not a rational thought that we think in our active consciousness at all. Most of the time, this is not something we are aware of. It takes a hell of a lot of work and practice, continuous practice, in order to develop the awareness, the conscious awareness, in order to actually know. First of all, this is what happens. Then, this is what is happening. Then, oh my God, this is what's about to happen. And then the integration process starts. Right? So it's a journey in itself to actually work on retranslating the trigger, because that's the process. We learn to retranslate how our body responds and reacts to an environmental stimuli. And up until the moment when we actually updated that translation that we're using currently, in this version we are, our body is going to react based on the initial information it perceived when this event happens. And in most of the cases, the information your body thinks is attached to this feeling is that you're in danger. Okay, you're in danger. So immediately it's going to want to protect you. Right? Now, as you can imagine, this does not have good repercussions, especially in relationships. Right? So it really is hard. It is hard. What can we do? Well, there's a lot we can do. Okay, the systems are there, the processes are there in order to deal with this process, this integrate this. One of the very first things we can do once we realize, okay, Marcel, you can't deny this anymore. This is what's happening. You are being triggered. Why am I being triggered? Okay, before I'm getting to the why, what is triggering me? So we isolate the steps. All right, even if you have to write it down with a pen and a piece of paper, right? Make a map. Like this is my video map. See? Make a map from the start to the finish, what it is, what is triggering me. Then you can start going slowly into the why. But first, if you are in a situation, in a scenario where it is a personal relationship dynamic, where somebody specific is triggering you, ask yourself one question. Is it the person that I'm reacting towards, or is it the information? So once again, is it the person that I'm reacting towards, or is it the information? This step is crucial because what it does is it creates an extra awareness compound, right? An extra awareness kind of placeholder where you're telling your mind to start working. You're telling your mind, okay, listen, now I need to think. So rather than just being automated again, and having this subconscious trigger work, you're saying, okay, Marcel, what is it really, And you go through the conversation and you go, but fuck, it wasn't actually the person. I just did not agree with what the person said. And then that's triggered me. The other side, of course, if it was the person, then you do exactly the same. You ask, was it the person? Was it the information? No, Marcel, it was the person. Okay, why was it the person? And then eventually you will figure out it's because either you didn't hear what you were hoping to hear, all right? Or either what they said about something or what they did about something to do with you went against how you see yourself. And of course, then if you're being really, really introspective and realistic and transparent, you will come to the conclusion that you really care about what this person thinks about you. And this is why it triggered you in the first place. And think about how we learn, right? Simple example. When you start to get hungry and you smell food, your body starts to react. Now, you don't see this as a dangerous trigger, because over a long time of processing and behavioral incorporation, you've become used to, okay, I am getting hungry, right? I'm getting hungry. Now imagine you get amnesia, you smell something, you can feel, oh my God, my mouth is starting to salivate, my stomach is starting to growl. You're going to go, what's going on? You're not going to know why your body is reacting like this. Trauma triggers work exactly the same. Exactly the same. What can we do? Simple steps in order to systematically update the retranslations. First one is awareness. Okay? Be mindful. Be mindful. Mindful is make sure your attention is where you are. Cultivate your awareness and ask yourself, what is happening inside of me? How do I feel? What emotion am I experiencing? Introspect. See what is happening inside of me. Now, I have to add that, of course, this is next to impossible when you are in a trigger situation. But these steps are the steps to be followed after you got triggered and you look at your behavior in retrospect. When you ask yourself what happened, this is when you practice the awareness. This is the first step, okay? Awareness, acknowledgement. Yes, Marcel, this is happening now. It happened, I don't want it to happen again, what do I do? Second step, educate yourself, okay? This is really important. Rather than be stuck in an automated loop, hit the internet. Write down the steps in this video. There's so many people that are currently researching this area. The information is there. Educate yourself. Find out what other people has already discovered. It is so important. It's incredibly important. The third step, management. Management behaviors, management tools, management resources. This is important because it helps us in this step towards practicing to stay calmer and calmer and calmer when we get triggered. Okay? It doesn't yet help us to change our behavior towards the trigger, but it gives us this break to show our bodies that, okay, listen, you've experienced this now 100 times, Marcel. Okay, let's say 3 times. I practice consciously. I re-expose myself to the same trigger 3 times every time I choose to exercise a specific management system during it. First time I go management. Okay, I do breathing, and I go, okay, Marcel, I know this is what happens. I'm gonna expose myself to the trigger again. This time I'm already aware that, okay, my body is going to want to react a very specific way. So I'm going to try and catch it. Second time I go, and immediately I remember, okay, this is what's happening. It happened before already. Right? It's really important. So it's the recognition aspect of it. You're not just dropped into that seriously massive, powerful feeling. Then I go, okay, yeah, now I can stay relatively quiet, not quiet, calm, while I'm experiencing this. Plus, I'm starting to develop the awareness of how I reacted before compared to how I'm reacting now. And then I can consciously go, okay, yeah, now I'm going to do it again, right? But this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and consciously respond rather than automated reaction. So I go tick, 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 trigger. I said from the outside, this is how it looks. Inside, of course, all of these steps fall into place then. Right? You go trigger. Okay, happened twice already before. Remember, this is what happened the first time. After the second time, you showed yourself you can be a bit calmer. Remember to practice the breathing. Now we're going to do it again. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Breathe. Remember, go into it. Now, of course, this is just on paper. All right. In reality, mostly we don't design our triggers in our environments. Okay. The reason it is so fundamentally powerful is because most of the time it actually gets us unexpectedly. And this is why I'm pointing out so hard retrospective behavioral analysis, right? Simple terms, reflect on your behavior after it happened, okay? Reflect on your behavior after it happened. Don't just get lost in that feeling of pain and anger and begrudgment, all of that emotional turmoil. Make a conscious decision that you don't want this to happen anymore, and then look at what happened. Design the steps. It's possible. And the fourth part in this particular sequence, practice. Without practice, nothing is going to change. The way that I like to always explain is think of a professional athlete. Makes total sense. Okay? You practice something so much that it becomes a memory. Okay, it becomes an automated behavior. Now, the negative of the trauma behavior, if it's a long-term process, long-term trigger behavior, that trigger was practiced subconsciously multiple times. So it became automated. So the way that you're reacting to an external trigger up until now was also because you've been practicing it subconsciously for so long. Once you realize this, you can start consciously practicing something else. Think about that. So you really can redesign what the triggers do to you. I hope this helps. This is something that me personally, I've been going through most of my life. Now I help people to go through this. But I still have my own triggers as well that I'm dealing with consciously, in awareness. Before, many years ago, if I'd be triggered and I'd fall into that pain and I would shut myself off from the world for days, sometimes weeks. Now, I get triggered. Few minutes, I say I'm sorry, I explain what happened, I reflect on my behavior and I make a conscious decision to remember to look out for this and to practice changing my behavior if that happens again. Can be done. That's it. Once again, please, if you get to this stage and you watch the whole video, thank you, number one. Like the video, subscribe. I'm really trying to get some momentum going here. But most importantly, if what's the word I'm looking for? Let's just say if I'm speaking to you, because I can't think of the term now. If I'm speaking to you, okay, and you share this experience that I just spoke about, write about it in the comments. Write about your experience. Right? Share it. The reason for that is it's difficult for us to start dealing and managing and incorporating and integrating these things because we keep it to ourselves. Okay? Because we keep it to ourselves, we don't get to practice new. By keeping it inside, we just practice repeating the same thing over and over and over again. So by sharing it, that's already a new behavior. And this is how we change. By practicing to do something different, not the same thing. Take care.